Hi, and today we're going to be talking about that all important question of how you can build confidence as a highly sensitive person. Hi, and welcome to Awaken Your More. My name is Rachel, and I teach highly sensitive, high achieving women to step into lives of peace, power, and purpose so they can finally start living a life that feels like theirs. So, in today's episode, we're going to be unpicking how you can build confidence as a highly sensitive person. And I think it's important to know that we use this word confidence, but what we're really talking is about inherent self-worth. And that's how we feel about ourselves. And it can be like an elusive thing for sensitive people, especially in this world that seems so glossy. Everybody seems so sure of themselves, so bold, especially if you are on social media. This can feel really sort of overwhelming and like, why can't I be like that? Why can't I be really bold and loud and shiny? And I think for sensitive people, that's just something that we struggle with. But I would really encourage you to strip away from that and start to view confidence, that deep self-worth, as not being louder, not being shinier, but actually being you and liking you and standing up for who you are. And that doesn't mean you need to be louder, and it doesn't mean you need to fake it with this fake it till you make it kind of shit that everyone says you should do, because that's not who you are. And you can't fake something because you will always feel inferior within your body. So unless you actually learn to embody that and work through those blocks, then you're never kind of going to feel that confidence. So today we're going to talk about some strategies that I really enjoy using with my clients and have used myself to build that confidence from within. So how to build actual confidence is a lifelong journey if you're sensitive. And it's not that it's not achievable, but when we realize that we will have tendencies to perhaps gravitate towards low self-worth patterns in our lives, we need to really make sure we're embedding those skills and those beliefs within our regular activities in our days if we're highly sensitive. And I think one of the most fundamental practices for me, and it's a practice that I teach my clients, is practicing radical self-acceptance. So it's a sort of theory that Tara Brach, who is an amazing meditation expert, kind of coined, and it's linked to mindfulness. And it's about really embracing who we are and what we're going through without pushing it away. Because so much of confidence and low self-worth comes from that belief that we're not allowed to feel how we want to feel, and we're not allowed to be uniquely us. So what we often do is we start pushing things away and, saying, I can't possibly feel like this. I shouldn't feel like this. And what that does is it creates a resistance loop within our minds and bodies. And we know that whatever we resist persists. And by doing that, we only just make this stronger. This isn't a new idea, and this really comes from Buddhism. This idea of interconnectedness and feeling our feelings and not being afraid to be present with the discomfort. Because like I just mentioned, a lot of us in our lives really don't enjoy being uncomfortable. So we want to fight naturally to get out of that discomfort. But when we just allow whatever is coming through to be there, to witness it, and then just to pass through, for so many highly sensitive people, we have often grown up around this idea that our voice is not enough and that what we want to say in the world is not enough. Maybe that's because you had a friend when you were younger who was more confident than you. Maybe you just felt that you weren't able to express yourself because you worried about that. And therefore, when you were younger, and this comes from childhood a lot, these sort of limiting beliefs are really patterned in when we're young. And it's that idea that I'm not worthy of sharing my voice. And when we do this, and when this comes from our childhood, we take this pattern into our adulthood. Even if we think we've kind of overcome it and we're more maybe confident on the outside, we potentially still don't feel confident speaking up in meetings, actually sharing what we want in the world. This really comes down to a lack of self-trust, which I've talked about in one of my other videos. And part of building self-trust is and confidence is about being able to share your voice, and that's no matter how small that action might be. Maybe that's an opinion, maybe that's in a meeting, maybe that's setting a boundary with a loved one or a friend. We need to remember that being confident doesn't necessarily mean being the loudest person. And society has often gone like, oh, we are the loudest, we're the loudest person in the room, we must be the most confident. We can't fake confidence. Confidence that is faked is built on really unsturdy foundations and will only crumble. So a key thing to remember is, if you're not necessarily a loud person, being loud has nothing to do with being confident. Okay, it actually is often a sign of trying to compensate for something and trying to make yourself appear a certain way because of a deep-rooted insecurity or belief. I would really encourage you to share your unique voice in a way that perhaps you haven't explored before. Maybe that's blogging, maybe that's on YouTube, maybe that's writing on Substack. And that doesn't have to be to build an audience or do anything like that. It could just be a creative outlet for you to get comfortable expressing your opinions, which perhaps you've felt uncomfortable doing in the past. And I think I see a lot of this is that we feel uncomfortable expressing our opinions. And this often comes from this comparison trap, because maybe we feel like we're not as intelligent, or maybe we don't feel that we can present ourselves in a way that is desirable to what maybe social media is saying it should be. And I think there is a lot of noise out there, and a lot of comparison can be had when we're scrolling online on these kind of short form platforms, which I guess, I mean, I've been on Instagram and I am meaning to get back on it, but in my own authentic way. And what I see is a lot of people presenting a way of being spiritual, a way of being healthy or well. And we can so easily fall into the trap that this is what it needs to look like in order for us to feel worthy. But if we look at this deeper, this is all very performative. And when things are performative, they're not authentic. So really try to tap into that kind of scanning when you're going on these platforms. And when you see yourself getting that trapped in that comparison and that knocking your confidence, really root down in that and think, is actually this authentic, or is this actually done to present something in a certain way? And I think when you can tap into that, you can sort of bypass the bullshit a little bit. And that's definitely been something that's really helped me as a business owner, and obviously a business owner and a coach and someone who works within the wellness space. So tapping into your kind of bullshit radar as a highly sensitive person is really important when you're on these platforms. I think we all need to learn to value our value, and like this means valuing your highly sensitive nature, or your sensitivity, or even your perfectionist quirks, because we can get so bogged down in like, oh my goodness, I'm highly sensitive, I find noise overstimulating, I get upset by things easily. And yeah, these are all kind of true and these do happen. But when we kind of constantly hone in on the negative things of being highly sensitive, we really strip ourselves from happiness, and we strip ourselves from seeing the kind of positive. There are a lot of positive things that comes with being a sensitive, attuned person in this world. And I, for one, love the fact that it allows me to see things in a more creative way. And lots of people don't have that experience. So I would really start to tap into your strengths and gifts that you have as a sensitive person as a way of building your authenticity. And that's about reverse engineering that word sensitive as like a negative pattern. And, you know, we go to the supermarket and we're like, oh, sensitive product on the shelf, or we go somewhere and someone says, oh, that person's being so sensitive. And it's like, naturally like alarm bells kind of go off in our head and we're like, I don't find the word sensitive a positive one. And I think that's about reframing it for yourself, because, society might not have caught up with that yet, but reframing it for yourself, thinking, can I see sensitivity as being something which isn't hindering to me, that actually gives me this, rather than takes this. And that's about having a good internal monologue in your mind, which I know can be quite tricky if we're in a low place. Having that self-talk with yourself, kind of like, okay, how much of this am I kind of feeding within my mind? And how much of this am I actually being truthful? And how much of this am I actually feeding this like negativity loop? And kind of stepping and in and reframing that pattern as you go throughout your day. Confidence is a marathon, not a sprint, and it takes time to develop and embody. Just make sure that you really practice those embodiment skills that I've spoken about in another video, and you also try your best to reframe sensitivity as something that is negative. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for weekly videos. Thank you so much. Namaste.